It's the end of March. You know what that means. Now, before I get into the recap and the TBR and all of that, I'm just going to say this is a very apt sweater for how I am feeling right now. My tummy does hurt, and I am being brave about it because the books wait for no one, and I must share my opinions. So it is the end of March, and I have had a really good reading month, especially compared to February. My gosh, what a disaster. So March, we have redeemed ourselves. So in the month of March, I read 5 books, DNF'd 1 book, and I read 2 fantasy, 1 mystery, 1 historical fiction romance, and 1 classic. So I feel like I really spread out in the genres this month. And variety really is the spice of life. And I have had a whale of a time reading all of these books. Well, actually, one of them I didn't have a great time reading. Can you guess? Okay, so let's talk about the books that I read in March, shall we? The first book that I read in March, you saw me read in my Overcoming My Reading Slump video, and that is The Magician's Nephew by C.S. Lewis. Oh, this book extracted me out of that reading slump like no book ever has. And oh, what a great book. For those of you who have never read The Magician's Nephew, this is the first book in the Chronicles of Narnia, which has 7 books. These are children's books, but they are so much more than that. So The Magician's Nephew follows Diggory and Polly. They become friends one wet summer in London, and Diggory's uncle is a magician, hence The Magician's Nephew. Through some meddling by Diggory's uncle, Diggory and Polly find themselves in a world between worlds. That's how I'll describe it. And adventure ensues. They, through this adventure, come across the world of Narnia. And chaos does ensue. But this is such a heartwarming book. And it really does set up the rest of the series so well because you really get to see things from the beginning. And everything makes sense. Like if you have only read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, so much makes sense when you read this book. It just sort of enhances every experience you had reading The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe because you get some backstory, you get some context, you so much more deeply appreciate the elements that exist within The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe when you read this book. So please, 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 if you haven't, please read this because I think it's one of my favorites of the entire Chronicles of Narnia series, and it won't disappoint you. If you're in a reading slump, there is nothing wrong with picking up a book that is well below your reading level because the stories that you get specifically from children's books there's something just so nostalgic about them. And they just bring out this childlike joy in you, especially when you're able to like read them quickly because the language is very simple, but the story is still so profound and it gets you right in the feels. Oh, highly, highly, highly recommend this book. And overall, I gave this book a 4.75 stars out of 5. It is so good. I love it so much and it holds a special place in my heart. I love going to C.S. Lewis for pretty much anything, not only his fiction with the Chronicles of Narnia, but also his nonfiction, The Four Loves, A Grief Observed, Mere Christianity, The Screwtape Letters. Oh my goodness, The Screwtape Letters is really a work of genius and I highly recommend it to anyone. The Chronicles of Narnia are not overtly Christian. There are Christian themes, but if you are not a Christian, you can still 100% read these books. They are so well written and just, I can't compare them to anything. Really, they do sort of stand in a league of their own. So highly recommend any of C.S. Lewis's writing, really. I don't think I've read all of his writing, but I have read a chunk. A Grief Observed made me bawl my eyes out. Screwtape Letter is incredible. Just, if you're looking for something thought-provoking, I highly recommend his nonfiction. And if you're looking for just like a whimsical, magical, nostalgic, fun time, while also having like deep themes and still really thought-provoking, incredible writing, then please pick up the Chronicles of Narnia if you haven't. Please. Now, the next book I read in the month of March was Red Rising by Pierce Brown. Now, don't hate me. Okay? Don't hate me. I was not in the right frame of mind. I was not in the mood for this book when I read it. I was in the clutches of a reading slump when I started this book. And I was reading it because Matthew has been reading the trilogy and absolutely adores it. He's been begging me to read it. And then it became available at the library and I was like, fine, I'll read it. Any other time, I think I would have loved this book. But I just wasn't in the mindset for it. And I feel really, 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 really bad. I feel really bad. I'm going to continue the series because honestly, this was a me problem and it still was really good. I ended up giving Red Rising 4 stars. And I know people are like, Red Rising is a 5-star book. And I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. I know. But I am who I am. Don't hate me. So in Red Rising, we follow Darrow. And in this world, there is a caste system, and each caste is named after a color. So he is part of the Reds, which is the lowest caste in this society. And the Reds are hard laborers, miners, the lowest of the low. And they believe that they are working diligently for generations to make the surface of Mars, I think it is, livable for people. And so Darrow and his family and the generations before them have been working tirelessly to reach this goal because they believe that they are the pioneers of this planet who are going to save humankind. However, we follow Darrow as his life is completely turned upside down. And they find out that people have been living on the surface of Mars for generations. And that the Reds, him and his family and his people, are slaves to uphold the decadent lifestyle of the colors above them. Darrow is obviously infuriated, and he joins a society and works to infiltrate the Institute, where the highest level golds go to learn how to lead, how to fight, how to control. And he works to infiltrate this institute to essentially try and take the society down from the highest level, from the inside. And you follow him through this journey, and it is a nail biter, okay? There are twists and turns like a pretzel all up in this book. The number of times I was like, what? Is wild. So this is a really good book, and I'm definitely going to be finishing the series, but I did need to take a break from it just because at the time I was in a bit of a reading slump, and it's also a very intense book and kind of sad. So maybe like check trigger warnings because it can be a lot, but I highly recommend, in case you haven't read it yet, Red Rising was a really great book for this month. It just wasn't my favorite and I wasn't in the mood. That's on me. It's not on Darrow. The next book that I finally finished in the month of March was Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. Oh my goodness. At this point, I don't even know if I want to watch the movie. The audiobook saved me for this because I almost DNF'd this book 15 pages from the end because my audiobook had to be returned to the library. Like, that's how much of a struggle this was for me. I remember loving this book so much. So I don't know what happened, but clearly my tastes have changed. I'm not even going to like sum up what Wuthering Heights is about for you because like, what is it about really? Here's what it's not: a love story. No, no, this is not a story about love and romance. This is a story about obsession and abuse. And anyone that spins it any differently is lying to you. And that sort of idea is actually quite harmful. This is not love, what we see in this book. This is not friendship. This is not how people should treat people that they claim to love. That is not what we do here. Okay. And also, here's my other thing that I forgot about. This whole story is told, sort of narrated by a servant who was sort of on the sidelines of everything. And I'm just sort of like, can we trust what this woman has to say? Because I just don't know, like within the context of the story, she is regaling her new master, like the person who now lives in the house that she is the housekeeper of. She is regaling him with the tale of the man who lives at Wuthering Heights and the people who live there. And I'm just sort of sitting being like, you're just a servant spilling the tea. And I'm not saying she's not reliable, but what part did she have to play in all of this? You know? And she wasn't there for everything. We don't know what Kathy and Heathcliff said to each other when they were out on the moors and the stolen moments when servants aren't around. I was just like, I get why Emily Bronte chose that way to share the story, but I just, it wasn't for me. And I think maybe I'm just reading too much into this. Overall, 2.75, just because, first of all, no idea what Joseph is saying half the time. And I'm British, okay? And I have a Cockney uncle and an aunt from the north. I know accents, okay? And that was hard. That was hard to figure out. So, but here's what I will say. The ending was satisfying, but I don't know whether I was satisfied because it was over or because I actually appreciated the ending. I just sort of like, I can't root for people who treat each other like that. And so I was just sort of ready for this to be done. And the only reason I finished it was so that I could watch the movie. And now I don't even know if I want to watch the movie because the idea of anyone trying to spin this into a love story makes me feel a little queasy. So there's my 2 cents on that. Okay, the next book was such a good time. The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. Oh, what a fun murder mystery. I loved this. I know some people have like really struggled with the writing style, but I think the thing that helped me with the writing style was that I listened to his podcast with Marina Hyde called The Rest is Entertainment. And when you listen to how he speaks, how he thinks, the types of jokes he tells, this book is just him. It's just him. Like I can hear his voice as I'm reading it, and it's written how he speaks and how his brain works. And I just loved it. I really, really did love it. It was so fun. I did find some things a little bit difficult to follow, but the characters were funny. I had no idea who did it until the end. But that's also me because I never know what's going to happen. Not a clue. Not one time have I ever guessed the ending of anything ever. But that's okay. It just means that I'm having a whale of a time all the time. So the Thursday Murder Club follows a group of older English pensioners who live in this retirement community. And every Thursday they get together to solve unsolved cold cases, essentially, just for fun. You know, what else is there to do on a Thursday afternoon? That's what I'd be doing. However, one day, a very rich land developer, who actually is the land developer of the community that they live in, dies, winds up dead as a doornail. And they're like, instead of going, oh, what a shame, they're like, hobby time. And they start trying to solve the murder themselves. Chaos ensues. It's heartwarming. It's hilarious. The British humor is so good. And I just loved it. I was giggling. I was going, you know? just all emotions. Really well written. And I also really appreciated, I don't have the physical book with me. I had to give it back to the library, but the chapters are so short. The chapters are like from anywhere from half a page to 3 pages, maybe 5. But the chapters are so short that you're like, oh, I could do one more. Oh, okay, I'll just do one more. Just one more. And then you've read like 60 pages and it's 1:00 in the morning, hypothetically. So really well written. Highly recommend if you're just looking for a fun old time. I'll definitely be reading the next books in the series as well, because who doesn't love a fun little murder mystery? I do. The last book that I read in the month of March was A Voice in the Wind by Francine Rivers. I am not a massive Christian fiction person. I am a Christian. I've gone through ebbs and flows of reading Christian fiction, but it's not something that I actively seek out other than Sarah Sundin, because she will forever hold a special place in my heart. But this is my first Francine Rivers book, and it's sort of like a duology trilogy thing, and we follow a few different people. The main character is this Christian slave girl called Hadassah, which is one of my favorite names of all time. I love the name Hadassah. I've heard it in other contexts, and I just go, oh, what a name. I digress. So we follow Hadassah, whose family is no longer with her. They die in the siege of Jerusalem, and she finds herself in ancient Rome. Like, this is all happening in ancient Rome, okay? And she ends up becoming a slave in the Valerian household to a young girl named Julia. And we follow Hadassah as she navigates love and loss and being a Christian in a time when it was essentially illegal to be one, and just how she loves and cares for those around her, how she serves the Lord faithfully in dire circumstances, and how she tries to minister to those around her. This book also follows Marcus Valerian, Julia's older brother, and Atreides, who is a Germanian man who ends up being captured and taken to Rome to fight as a gladiator. The fact that I'm even saying all of this out loud is wild. Like, I know that the concept of this book sounds crazy, but it was so good. I finished the first book, A Voice in the Wind, and the ending, what? Immediately picked up the second book. Immediately picked it up. I couldn't not know what was going to happen. So we just follow these characters as Hadassah interacts with all of them. She's really the glue that ties the story together, but we do get POVs from a bunch of different characters' perspectives, which makes the story a lot more interesting and gives it a lot of layers, a lot of nuance, and you get to see a lot of other people's perspectives, which just enriches the story so much. Really, really well written. I absolutely loved the first book, and I'm already partway through the second. I will say, check your trigger warnings before you read this book. I wasn't expecting a Christian fiction to be so gory, and I don't know why I wasn't expecting it to cover such deep and difficult themes. But if you are sensitive to anything, I would just give the trigger warnings for this book a read through. And I know that they contain spoilers or whatever, but it can be a bit upsetting depending on what triggers you. So just have a look. But really well done. I will be reading the other 2 books post haste. Now, those are all the books that I read in the month of March. However, I did have one DNF, and that was The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Stieg Larsson. Now, how do I put this? This is an early 2000s book. And let me tell you why I say that. I was listening to this on audiobook because it was just available. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll pick this up, put it down, listen to the audiobook. It'll be great. And I got about 6% of the way through before I decided to DNF this book. And let me tell you why. This book follows 2 characters, 2 main characters. One is a man and one is a woman. The way that the woman is introduced in this book, I found to be disappointing. And that is because we are introduced to Lisbeth Salander in a chapter written from the POV of a very sleazy man. And I just think that for a character that is so pivotal to the story, introducing a woman like that is just like, first of all, I never one time in the hundreds of books that I have read in my life needed to know the size of a woman's breasts in order to get a full experience of the book. You know, like, so it's so unnecessary. I think that the way that this woman was described, Lisbeth Salander, was introduced and described in this book to be really disappointing. Okay, I'll just say it. She was described as having childlike breasts. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back for me, because I was just like, we're not doing that. That's disgusting. No woman should ever be described like that, regardless as to what we're doing. And I don't need to know the size of a woman's breasts. I don't. I really don't. And it was also just like, oh, she's really smart, but it's annoying that she's so smart. Oh, a woman's smart. God forbid. Let's be so for real. And like, oh, she's the same age as my daughters. This is from the POV of the chapter that I was in. She's the same age as my daughters, and I'm not saying that I'm sexually attracted to her, but maybe I am. Ew. Ew. It's giving early 2000s and what was socially acceptable then, and I'm not giving my time to that anymore. It's 2026. No, thank you. No, thank you. Moving on. So, with that, we have come to the end of the March recap, which now means it is time for the April TBR. Now, I did try with my March TBR. I did try with the girl with the dragon tattoo. So don't come at me. You can come at me. I don't care. I have decided to change the rules a little bit. It doesn't impact you at all. But I have decided that I'm going to still pick 3 prompts, but I'm only going to try and read one of the books in the month, because 3 is a lot if I'm only reading 4 or 5 books in a month. And I just have too many library books coming to promise that I will read all of them. So I'm going to try and pick up one of the books. That's going to be my new goal, but I will have 3 to choose from because I am a mood reader and I don't want to just pick one, because then if I'm not in the mood for it, then that's it. You know, that's me done for the month. So shall we pick the books for April? Oh, I'm excited. Here we go. Ooh, an odd number of pages. I'll be back. All right, I have 2 books to choose from. The first is Donna Tartt's The Secret History. I have heard incredible things about this book, that it's a modern classic, that Donna Tartt's a genius. So I want to see for myself. This has, how many pages was it? 559 pages. Thank goodness. 559. Gosh. This book follows a group of students and a charismatic professor who teaches the classics. And the lines begin to blur between what is fiction, what is literature, and what is real life. So definitely interested in this. I also want to read If We Were Villains. And I want to compare the 2. So this could be a good choice. I also have Wayward by Sam Batterman. Okay. And I know how I just said that I'm not big into Christian fiction. It's not something that I reach for. However, this book was loaned to me by a friend at my Bible study, and he said that he thought that I would just have a whale of a time reading this. So this is essentially a Christian science fiction novel that follows a group of scientists who find a Nazi super weapon that was hidden for more than 60 years. And they are just trying to get to the bottom of what this was, what it was trying to do. And it's a story of good versus evil. And so this group of scientists wants to use this weapon to do good, to learn more about the world and the universe that they live in. But there is another group of bad people who are trying to get a hold of this weapon to do terrible things. So I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued. The way that this was sold to me has really piqued my interest. So I think I'm going to go for this one. I know it's not technically on my physical TBR, but I do have to give this back at some point. So, oh, and just so you know, I'm not lying. 315 pages. I promise. So the first book is Way Back by Sam Batterman. Let's do the next one. Ooh, one of my favorite authors. Okay, all right. We have another 2 books to choose from. The first is Murtagh by Christopher Paolini. I love, love, love the Inheritance series. Love it. Love it. But I have not read this one. And it came out like 2 years ago, and that's actually really bad. So he is one of my favorite authors, an absolute icon when it comes to fantasy. I love the world that he created, so I would love to dive back into it. However, the other option is Persuasion by Jane Austen. As I have said many, many times till I'm blue in the face, Pride and Prejudice is my favorite book of all time. I absolutely adore it. It is probably the reason that I'm a helpless romantic. And I have not read Persuasion. And as a Jane Austen girly, I feel like that's bad. I feel like I can't even say that I'm a Jane Austen girly without having read Persuasion. So I have like a lovely collection of classics that all sort of look like this. And I have never read Persuasion. So you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to read Persuasion. I'm going to put this on the list because I absolutely adore her writing. And I have heard really, really great things about this book. So I'm going to do it. Book number 2, Persuasion. On we go. Last one. Ooh. A cover I don't like. A cover I don't like. Okay, this is going to take me a minute. All right, a cover I don't like. The options are The Unusual Life of Tristan Smith by Peter Carey. I have absolutely no idea what this is about, but this cover is absolutely atrocious. Absolutely atrocious. I'm so sorry. It's about a guy named Tristan Smith. And apparently it's a very weird, whimsical book. I don't know. I don't know what to say. It's an awful cover. And not only does it have an awful cover, it's got the flipping decal pages. I actually think I might burst a blood vessel if I try to read this. I digress. The other option is The Ghosts of Rome. And you may be saying, Abby, that cover's really not that bad. And I know, I just sort of like every like historical fiction that has a woman in it just ends up looking like this. Some sort of historical landmark and a woman. We've seen it before. Come up with something else, you know? So that's sort of my thought on that. And this, what even is this? So this book follows a group called The Choir, and they are trying to help thousands of escapees get out of Nazi-occupied Rome, Italy, and they use something called the escape line. Now, the architect of the escape line, Hugh O'Flaherty, is in the Vatican, and he is just trying to stop this whole escape line from falling apart. Whereas there is an SS officer, Paul Hauptmann, whose job is to find this network and dismantle it, take it apart, destroy it. And both of them have reasons as to why they need to do this. The SS commander's wife and kid are locked up in the Gestapo in a Gestapo headquarters. And Contessa Giovanna Landini is part of the Italian resistance, and she is trying to keep the escape line from disintegrating as well. And apparently it's just heart-wrenching and incredibly well written. Unfortunately, the cover is not that great. What does the actual hardcover look like? Oh, it's just green. It's a nice green. So I think out of the two of them, I'm more interested in this concept than like a weird Art Nouveau book with a terrible cover. Honestly, if I had to look at that cover, I couldn't do it. So we're going to do this instead. The Ghosts of Rome by Joseph O'Connor. Oh my goodness. So that means that these are my book picks for the month of April. And depending on what mood I'm in, I feel like I have a good diverse palette of genres. I've got a classic, I've got a Christian science fiction, and I have a historical fiction. So that's a great mix of genres for whatever mood I find myself in the month of April. And I do have Easter in the month of April. Happy Easter to anyone who celebrates. And I plan on reading a lot in the 4 days that I have off from work. I plan to be in my comfy chair for most of it. So who's to say whether I will get to one or maybe more of these books? But I am so excited. So just a recap, we have Persuasion by Jane Austen, who is an author that I love. I have Way Back by Sam Batterman, which has an odd number of pages. And we have The Ghosts of Rome by Joseph O'Connor, which has a cover that I really don't like. Sorry. But the concept sounds great. So see, you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. Look at me being profound. So there we go. That was my March recap and my April TBR. Thank you so much for watching. March was such a great reading month for me. And I do feel like I'm coming back to life. As spring is coming, I am alive once more. So I just hope that you had as great a reading month as I did. If you didn't, I hope that April is a way better reading month for you. I hope that spring fills you with joy and a renewed vigor for life as it is for me. Until next week, I hope your book is good and I hope you have unhinged opinions about it. I'll see you next week. Bye. Oh, why do you start having an attitude as soon as I start recording? Why is that? Why is this the time? Yeah, I know. It's really hard being a dog. It's getting hot in here. I probably shouldn't be wearing a sweater.